Hi everyone, this is a quick review for the final exam as I promised yesterday. So we are in Unit 7 and the files are provided to you here under final exam review, and this is the access file we will be working in. So in the exam I will give you a data set in Microsoft Access format, and then I will give you the scenario, and the scenario was given to you also here. This is what for example, I asked you in the example here for the review. So I asked you to classify those patients that have invoice paid, whose invoice has been paid, and using the following features or the following predictors. So age, and you need to format age in a yearly format rather than as a date of birth. And then you will need to have format walk-in, visit month instead of visit date, and then invoice amount, insurance office visit. So this is to classify, because our target variable or output variable here is categorical or binary, whether it is invoice paid as yes versus invoice paid as no, right? Or 0 or 1. And then that second scenario, it's asking you to predict or estimate the insurance amount that will be paid by a patient given their age, whether they walked in or not, and the visit month, whether they visited in January or any month until December, and then the invoice pay, whether they had their invoice paid or not, and then invoice amount, and office visit, whether they visited the clinic for office visit or versus other types of visits. So let's start by cleaning the data. So we will first need to create a query in Microsoft Access. And to create a query, we need to go first, we need to look at the schema, this one, or the schema that, or the relationship tools. So the relationship of that we have. So as you can see here, we have all those tables, and for example, the date of birth, we will extract their year or their age from date of birth, and then we will need also whether they walked in or not, so it's from the visit table. The visit date also in month, we will transform that into months, and then we need the insurance, whether the invoice paid, and the invoice amount, and the office visit, which is part of the invoice item. So basically those are the items or the fields that we are going to extract for our query. So to run a query, we will use the GUI or query by example. So I'll just click on all of those files here one at a time, make sure that they are all connected. So now I can go ahead and start selecting those fields that were mentioned in the scenario. So from the billing table, I need insurance, invoice paid, invoice amount, and then from, let's say, invoice item, I need the invoice item, and then for patient, I need the date of birth, and for this guy, for the visit, I need the visit date, and I need the walk-in. So how did I know? I just looked actually here, and they are already highlighted for you, right? Very simple, very easy to know what we really need to select for the query. So now I can run it, but still I gave you some tips here how to convert age from date of birth into age, and also for visit month, how to calculate or to transform date into month instead of the full date, right? So to do that, I can just go back here, and I will just copy the formula that I already gave to you here. So I'll just copy this part, so Control C, and then I will come here to date of birth, and then I'll right click on date of birth, and then I will click on zoom. I will call it age here, right? and then Control V, and OK. So that was for A's. So now I run it. I see that A's now it is years instead of dates, right? The same thing, I need to transform the visit month into or the date of visit into months. So Control C, and then I'll come here. So visit date, right click on this guy, call it visit month, right, instead of visit date. So colon, and then I'll click OK. So now I have kind of to some extent ready to go data. So what I can do now, I can manipulate or transform those checkpoints versus not checked into zeros and ones here, or I can just export this file into Excel and then manipulate and fix those things using if functions in Excel. So it's up to you what you want to do. So let's just export this one to Excel, and then we can go from there. So to export it, I will need to go to external data and then Excel, and then I need to browse. So I want to keep it in my desktop, so I'll browse to desktop and then export data with formatting and layout. Say OK. OK. So now it has been saved for me here. So I have it here. So let's open it. So one of the questions might be asking you to create a correlation. So to create correlation in Excel. So to do that, to create a correlation in Excel, you will need to have numbers only. So we can't deal with text. So we need to transform those text into numbers. So let's start by this one. We said only visit. So in the scenario here, it says office visit should be binary derived from the invoice item, from the billing table, or from the invoice item. So should be fine. So what I need is, I will copy this guy, and then I will change the title to say invoice. Oops, so I need to copy this guy. So Control C and then Control V. And then I need to create or insert a new column. So here I will just create an if statement. So I will say if this cell value equals in quotation mark, and then I will Control V, office visit, close that quotation. Then if the value is true, then put it 1, if not, then 0. So now I'm creating a dummy variable for office visits. If it is office visit, then it is 1, otherwise it is 0. So then I will just say Control C, and then I will just right click here on D2 and insert or paste values only, right? Now I can delete this column. I don't need it. All right, the same thing. Now I can use an if statement or if function for this guy and another if function for this guy, right? So let's do that. So I'll say if, and remember here true, it's a reserved word, so you can either type it or, so let's type it just to reduce confusion. So I will say if this equals, so here since it is reserved value, I don't need to put it in quotation, so I can just say true, then 1, if false then 0, right, to create a dummy variable. So I need to run, oops, I need to copy this function by double clicking on this guy and just double check if your function is correct or not. Look at the false. If it is 0, then you are in a good shape, right? So now I will just say Shift Control, kind of to highlight the whole, and then the whole column, and then Control C, and then I'll go all the way up, and I'll right click here and values only, right? Okay. So now I can just delete this guy. The same thing here. Let's say that we need to create, oops, So let's see. Come on. Okay. So I'll say if this equals true, all capital, then if it is true, 1, otherwise 0. Alright, so the same thing, I'll just double click on this guy and then Control C, and then I'll just right click, put the values only. Alright, so now I have my data is ready to be analyzed, right? So I'll save, make sure that I keep saving this file. Always keep saving it, because when you use Orange, then you might get the old data with text. It will not work. So now let's run the correlation, because I might ask you a question about correlation. When you run correlation, we need all numbers in Excel, and then we can go to data. If you, for example, your computer you're working on doesn't have that data analysis, you can always go to information, to file, and then options, and then you can go to add-in, and then go to Excel add-in, and then make sure that the analytics or analysis tool pack is selected and click OK. Alright, so then you will see it here under data tab. Alright, and then we will go to correlation, select this guy from here, and then we can select all the columns from here, and make sure that we put labels in the first row, and then run. Alright, so now we can see the correlation. Let's say that I asked you in the exam, what is the correlation between insurance and invoice paid? So in this case, you will need to know how to find out that correlation. So it is the cross point between insurance and invoice amount. So this is the guy, right? And then this is the correlation between insurance and invoice amount, right? So you get the idea. Now I'll just drag this guy here. I'll keep dragging it here because I might need it later for Orange. But for now, let's say another. I will jump really quick here to do this one. Here they want us to estimate the insurance amount. So I might ask you to run this one. Since it is multiple regression, might ask you to run it in Excel and tell me, let's say, what is the R squared if you used Excel, right? So we have done this one in one of the units before, but let's do it one more time here as a refresher for the exam. So to run regression, I will do the same thing. I will go to data analysis, and then regression from here, and I click OK. So now the Y. Before I do that, so it is always wise for Excel or for you to, so insurance is here, right? So kind of to make it easier for you, you can always put the Y variable here, the far right. That way you can just select it and then select all of those together, right? Just kind of for formatting to make it easier, because Excel needs a little bit of work. So here, if we did it like what we did by clicking on this, it might not work if we click only on this, on the title. So what I will do is I will just select the whole column, and then I will drag, all right, until I see that. And now for the Y, I'll do the same thing. So I'll select from this title all the way, and then here I'll just type 205. That way it selects for me the whole thing. Now I'll make sure that I select the labels, and then in the new sheet I'll click OK. Now I have my regression done for me, and I just want to expand these guys. So now let's look at the p-values. So the p-values, I want to see the lowest p-value. That means that variable had significant is a significant predictor of insurance amount.